Today I'm going to show you how to defeat the Desert Titan. Now if you want to know how to summon or tame the Desert Titan, then I'll leave that video at the end, so stick around for that. Now in this video I'm going to go over the possible strategies, the attacks you will face throughout the battle, and then we will compare it all at the end so you can make your decision on how to beat the Desert Titan. But before we go any further, I must say that the server I am using is extremely close to official settings, meaning there are no buffs for me or any debuffs to make the Titan easier. Single player settings have been turned off, so hopefully this will be an accurate representation of your experience. In my opinion, there are two main strategies that can be used to defeat the Desert Titan: the Quetzal strategy or the Flyer strategy. Starting with the Quetzal, now this method may sound a bit unorthodox, but is actually quite effective. This one does take time to set up, as you'll need to tame a Quetzal, as well as either a Giga or a Karchar with high melee, as this will be attacking the Titan. I would advise taming a couple of each as backup just in case one of them dies throughout the battle. Now once you have your creatures, you will then make a platform saddle for the Quetz and build a box using foundations, ceilings and dinosaur gates like you can see in the video. I advise leaving a little gap by the Quetzal's head to make it easier to ride it again after you get dismounted by the flock. Once the box is made, you'll either walk or cryo your tame into the box to get it stuck on the back of your Quetzal, or this should be done before spawning the Titan to avoid any issues. After the Titan spawns, begin to fly towards it while whistling aggressive. When in range, your Giga or Karchar will begin to attack the Titan. Now all you have to do is stay close and remount your Quetzal whenever the flock hits you off. Now you may be wondering what the stats were for my Quetzal and Karchar. Well, I'll tell you all that in the comparison later on. For the second strategy, the Flyer strategy, the creature you'll use will depend on your access to other maps, either through another server or a cluster. Now if you can't access another map, then you'll use Argentavis, but if you can access other maps, then you'll use Wyverns. Whichever creature you choose to use, the strategy is basically the same. Tame a large number of them and send them to attack the Titan like you would in any other boss fight. It is important to note that if you do decide to use Wyverns, I highly recommend using only one version of it, as Wyverns can't be hurt by the breath of the same type. So if you were to use a Lightning and a Fire Wyvern, then your tames will be at risk of hurting one another. My suggestion would be to use the Lightning, as the range is longer than the Fire, which reduces the chance of them being hit by the Titan. There are a few attacks to be wary of when facing the Desert Titan, starting with the Tail Slap. If you get too close to the back of the Titan when flying above it, you may be hit by its tail, which will deal a lot of damage. Now this attack is easy to avoid, as the Titan will make a noise and dip its head every time before it attacks, so if you hear this noise, get out of the way. The second attack is the Lightning Strikes. When you're attacking the Titan, it will attempt to target you with its lightning. At first you'll see it around you and a debuff will appear stating you have been targeted. At this point you must escape or else you'll be struck, and if you are, you'll be heavily damaged if not killed. The final attack is a bit more passive, as the Titan will send its flock to attack you. A message stating you are being targeted by the flock will appear, and at this point they will chase you and will most likely hit you. And when you do, you will be dismounted from your tame and also hurt quite badly. Now the flock can be taken out, but the Desert Titan will just respawn them, so I wouldn't focus on them too much. At this point I've told you about two different strategies and all the special attacks you will face throughout the fight, so let's compare them so you can decide the best method for you. Now the Quetzal strategy, the pros for this is you can have a high amount of damage depending on the stats of your Karchar or Giga. Obviously your Quetzal and your other tame can be bred for mutations and traits, making them a lot better for the fight. And finally, they can have saddles for a large damage reduction depending on the stats. Now the cons for this method I would say is the setup cost, as you'll need all the foundations, ceilings and gateways. The AI doesn't always attack. Throughout my fight, the Karchar was just standing there for most of the time instead of hitting the Titan. 3, you'll be constantly dismounted by the flock. I was dismounted pretty much within a couple of minutes every time, so you've got to be careful of that. 4, because you're being so close to the Titan, you're leaving yourself and your creatures open to a lot of damage. And finally, it was rare, and it may happen, but the Karchar or Giga can sometimes glitch out of the box, meaning you've got to go and grab them again. Now the stats I used in mine was a Quetzal with 10k health, and then my Karchar had 19k health and 325 melee. Moving on to the Flyers. The pros for this method is that there's multiple targets for the lightning to hit as well as the flock, so you're less likely to be attacked. The saddles you need are quite cheap if you use primitive ones, and obviously the wyverns don't need saddles. You can breed your RGs for better mutations and traits, and the wyverns can actually outrun the flock if they're chasing you. Now the cons for this method is, once again, you have no control over the ARK AI, so they might not always attack the Titan. Better saddle BPs are expensive for the RGs if you want more damage reduction. Wyverns have no damage reduction as they don't have a saddle or any kind of armor. And finally, if you do get dismounted, you could easily die as you'll be dropped from your tame straight towards the floor. So make sure you bring some parachutes. Now to go over the stats, I had 15 RGs with a range of about 10k health and then 5 to 600 melee. For the wyverns, I used 10 of them with 12k health and about 400 melee. And there you have it. You should now be prepared to take on the Desert Titan. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. Also suggest any other methods you guys like to use. As I mentioned before at the start of the video, if you want to know how to summon and tame the Desert Titan, then watch this video right here.